Thank you so much for watching Riff TV. Now, this interview is obviously with video, but I don't interview everybody on Zoom. That's why I put it on my Talkin Rock with Meltdown podcast. We talk to rock artists from all over the genre. So check out Talkin Rock with Meltdown wherever you get your podcasts. And now to today's video interview. Man, look at that room. You're making me jealous, Richard. That looks cool.
It's my dojo.
Is that right?
It's my studio. Yeah, this is where I recorded the last record, The Algorithm, that comes out August 25th.
Yes, August 25th. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. You know, you're just talking before we got in before we started recording here about the internet and stuff like that. The first time I ever met you was in 1996. You came to Detroit right here to WRF. And I have a picture on my wall with you and Brian and myself, and we did a computer chat room thing. That was like so long ago, and it was just at the very infancy of the computer and the internet and stuff. You got to talk to fans, and I think we even did it from like a computer store or something like that. I wasn't even here at the station.
Wow, I completely spaced on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not expecting you to remember that, but it's just wild to think of where we've been since then.
Yeah, now it's here we are in the Zoom age.
Yeah. And you're no.
I've got gray hair, and you look great, dude. What are you, like 25 still?
I hide it well, I suppose. I think I'm actually exactly 10 months younger than you.
Wow.
So
yeah, you're doing good, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Looking good.
Yeah, so you're no stranger to Detroit, and I forgot all about this, but you recorded your guys' first record here, right? Or did you mix or produce it here?
It was mixed at Pearl Audio, Ben Gross's studio near Farmington Hills, Michigan.
Yeah.
And I actually lived in Farmington Hills, Michigan around 1975, 76. So I was like 6 or 7 when we left.
Oh, no kidding. So that's when you went to
That's when we moved to Cleveland.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. All right. Yeah, that Pearl studio is still up and still recording and stuff. My friend Chuck Alkazian runs that place now.
Oh, that's great. That's really, we mixed Short Bus there. So
yeah, for people that are outside the area, that you wouldn't even know is a studio. It's a cinder block square building on the corner of, it's just like
out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I didn't know there was even, well, there's all subdivisions around it now, but outside the subdivisions, there's this building. I didn't even know what it was for years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's just, Ben liked to have kept his buildings like anonymous. Like, he didn't advertise that he was there because he was worried about, people breaking in or something like that.
Right.
And even today, he has a studio in Burbank, and it's all just completely you would never guess that it was a studio. Like it is just, and people like their anonymity. Like when you get people like Madonna was there, no one knew she was there. You know what I mean? Like, it's just looks like an empty office building.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Madonna's birthday, by the way, 65, another Michigan.
Happy birthday to you.
Anyways, let's talk about you. Let's talk about Madonna. The Algorithm, like you just mentioned, comes out August 25th. Now, this record has been in the hopper for quite some time, and it's gone through, I guess to coin a phrase, it's gone through a bunch of amalgamations.
There you go. Yeah, it started off, I was going to call it Rebus, and it was going to be done entirely by me and Brian Leeskang, and that fell apart. And I have 4 songs from Brian Leeskang that we're using, 2 of which already came out. Thoughts and Prayers in America came out already, but Summer Child and Command Z are on The Algorithm. And then it was going to be called They Got Us Right Where They Want Us, At Each Other's Throats, which was way too long, and I decided to bail on that. And then I kind of enjoyed the idea of the algorithm. Like everybody has a math equation or a problem or something in their life that they're trying to overcome, and I figured it was more universal this way.
Yeah, and of course that's one of those phrases that's fairly popular nowadays.
Yeah, the algorithm. Yeah, it's everywhere.
I was watching that video for Face Down. That's that's a fun video to watch.
Yeah, Face Down, taking it really literally, and just put in a bunch of crazy shots of people face planting.
And that was in that studio right there that you're in, right?
Yeah, it was recorded right here in this studio.
But the video as well.
The video as well, absolutely. Yeah.
everything. So when the record comes out, what do you think people are going to gravitate towards? What kind of grabs you right away from this album?
I think people are gonna like the heaviness. I mean, I love music that makes me just want to get up and run or drive a car really fast or something like that. And but I think people are gonna they're gonna feel like the way they did during Amalgamut or Title of Record or Short Bus. It reminds me of the Warner Brothers first three records that we did on Warner Brothers. And those are definitely some great years. So it kind of reminds me of that because I took a real heavy hand in production. Like I really, really, really made sure that I was happy before anybody. And I for the past 10 years, I've really relied on producers and songwriters and stuff like that, which I love, and I love working with them. But this year, I like bought a computer and like sat there and recorded everything like on my own, and with the exception of two or like maybe five songs where I asked for outside collaboration with Zach Monowitz or Sam Tenez or Mark Jackson and Ian Scott. I really did apply myself and kind of I made sure that it sounded like old school Filter.
Now, was that something that you thought about going in, or did it just happen to work out that way? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, did when you first started this, what now, 2017 or whatever it was, did you want to go back to the roots, or did it just kind of go that way?
I think it just naturally kind of went that way because I'm not a big like planner of like what I'm gonna do. There's I don't like um navigate through like, oh, it's getting too much like this or it's getting too much like that. Stay on target, stay with the plan. I try and go with the flow on the record and see what it wants to be, and then when I'm done, like come up with the title and the visuals and everything like that.
So I guess you let the song kind of dictate where it goes.
Exactly. This whatever's best for the song is what's like there was a chunk of me that wanted to have the record be more industrial, and I was going to leave the drum programming like artificial.
Mhm.
But then as I was hanging out with my drummer Elias Mullen, he was just like, Rich, if I took this and I took these 11 songs and I went to a studio and played live drums, I think you would like it way better than the program stuff. And I said, all right, let's give it a shot. So we went to a little studio in Burbank and called Stag Street and recorded all the drums for 11 songs in a couple of days. And I was blown away by how good it sounded. And yeah, it was changed at the last minute. I mean, like literally, doing drums is the last thing that you do before you start mixing it
Mhm.
in our band. And so I'm loosey goosey when it comes to creativity. I try and accentuate what's weird and what's interesting about the record, and just play it by ear, literally.
Right. Yeah. Now, are you a fan of the electric drum sound, or that's just what you're used to, or?
Yeah, so Short Bus, our first record, was completely drum machine and samples and stuff like that. And then Title of Record, I used a drummer. His name was Steve Gillis. And then Amalgamut, I used Steve Gillis again. And then for Anthems for the Damned, I used Josh Freese. And then The Trouble with Angels, it was Mika Finio. Then for The Sun Comes Out Tonight, it was back to a drum machine. It was all programmed. And then Crazy Eyes was a lot of drum machine, but a lot of Chris Reeve on drums. And then for this record, it's Elias Mullen.
It's funny I'm talking to you today. I just talked to Wolfgang Van Halen yesterday, and I just saw Ghost the other night. And all you guys are kind of like in the same kind of boat where you guys are really truly the captains of everything you do, as opposed to a band like, I don't know, like a Metallica or somebody where there's like four guys that contribute. But you're really the guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I was the guy that got the record deal back in 1993 off of demos I made pretty much by myself. And I had some friends around with me, but I was kind of the king of my world. And I've just I'm just, I'm blessed because I'm free. I can work with anyone I want. I can work with, on this record, I worked with Zach Monowitz on guitar.
Mm.
He wrote 3 songs with me. He pretty much came up with these riffs that were amazing. And I have this freedom, whereas a band like U2, it's the 4 dudes and that's it. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And Danielle Lanois and Brian Eno, you know what I mean? There was a lot of songwriting that Danielle and Lanois and Brian Eno did for U2, but essentially it's U2, you know
Right.
what I mean? Or, or the Clash, or, the Who. It's the 4 dudes. Even though Pete Townsend is heavily handed in the music end of it, it's still considered to be like a band, like the 4 dudes. So, or the Rolling Stones or something like that. This is more of like the Richard Patrick Show without having the bad title, the Richard Patrick Show. I mean, I just think it's cooler. I come from 9 Inch Nails, and I learned a lot from Trent, and that's just the way I did it. It was very similar to the way Trent did it.
Yeah, I was just going to compare that because obviously it's very similar. You just mentioned 1993 when you left 9 Inch Nails. You really took a huge gamble on
Yeah,
yourself, didn't you?
it was a ballsy move,
Yeah.
and people were begging me not to leave, and I just felt at the time that, like, I think I'm just gonna be better off if I go and learn how to write and sing and do all that on my own. And it's better for my life. It's better for my state of mind. It was just a scenario where I just literally just felt like I had to express myself and give it a shot.
Yeah. And you talked about this before. You actually told me this several years ago where Trent at one point said, yeah, there's a pizza place, looking for drivers if you want to make some extra money or something. Was your relationship really shattered at that point?
Yeah, it was the manager too, John Malm, had said straight up, like, hey, there's a pizzeria down the way,
Oh,
and if
okay.
and he it's, if you're looking for some extra cash while you're here in LA while we're working on the record, you can be a pizza delivery guy. And the thing that stuck out to me was when he said, but this is a good way to get to know Los Angeles, like you'll be able to navigate around and learn Los Angeles, because back then we didn't have computers. We had Thompson guide maps. That So I just was floored, and they didn't know it, but I was talking to Warner Brothers, and I had a demo of Hey Man, Nice Shot, and Warner Brothers was like, we'll sign you right now.
Hmm.
And it was like, I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll do that instead of the pizza job. But they, they just had miscalculated a little bit, and it was a little weird back then. You know what I mean? I gotta say.
Now, by this time, you had already like toured and stuff, right? So you were like touring and playing out.
I
And now,
was Piggy.
yeah, yeah.
My
And yeah,
nickname was Piggy. I was the guitar player Piggy, and we did everything up from 1989 to 1993, including Lollapalooza.
yeah.
I was in several of the videos, and I was more of a member than I was a hired gun, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
again, Trent really, really held his cards close to him as a songwriter, and and rightfully so. It's his baby, and it was just hard to, navigate me wanting to be creative and staying in 9 Inch Nails at the same time. And that's, in a perfect world, I should have probably done both. You know what I mean? I probably should have stayed, and I probably should have done Filter at the same time, and just was like, yeah, this is also what I'm doing. But I think Trent deserved 100% of a person. And look at the great people that came out of it. Danny Lohner and Robin Fink. And Robin Fink is an amazing guitar player, and he's definitely an upgrade. And I love Danny and Robin, and they had a chance because I split. You know what I mean? They got an opportunity to be in 9 Inch Nails, and so be it. And they're great musicians.
Yeah. I've never met Trent or interviewed him or anything like that. And I don't really, obviously I don't know him, but it's like, if you're doing 9 Inch Nails and doing your own side project, that seems to me like that might be a little bit of a friction point. That's just my.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. And I figured maybe it would just be better if I was gone. And
Right.
I honestly didn't think that it was going to be the huge kind of letdown that it turned into. And you know, I got a phone call from Brian Leesgang, who was like, dude, Trent's writing songs called Piggy, he's writing songs about you, you know what I mean? And because Brian had stayed to work on the Prick record after I left up at the Sharon Tate house. And I didn't realize I had that much of an impact in Nine Inch Nails. And I was shocked that I was kind of so missed. I was
Yeah.
kind of like, well, where was the love when I was in it? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
uh,
And so you've
but
talked about this several
but
times, but
all this is water under the bridge.
right. Yeah.
All this is water under the bridge.
No, I gotcha.
I have had the greatest time in Filter. I'm still playing shows. I've been playing shows for 30 years now.
Yeah.
And I put out, this is my 8th record coming out, and I live a beautiful, wonderful life. I have a wife and kids, and everything is fantastic. So it totally worked out. And the best thing in the world happened last year, which was I got to reunite
Hmm.
with Nine Inch Nails in Blossom Music Center on August 24th last year, and it was absolutely amazing. It was, look it up on YouTube for all the listeners. It was absolutely amazing. Trent was so generous. I came out, he's like, "You're singing Eraser." I'm like, "Okay, I'm singing Eraser," and I could barely hold my shit together because I was crying. I was so overwhelmed. The audience was so overwhelmingly positive and sweet. And then then we went into Wish, and then Sin, and then Gave Up. And then he had Nine Inch Nails learn "Hey Man, Nice Shot," the song that I left for. So Nine Inch Nails performed "Hey Man, Nice Shot" with me singing it. And then he's like, "You're singing, after that we're doing Head Like a Hole, and you're gonna sing the second verse and Head Like a Hole." And I'm like, God, all right, this is amazing. So, and I just had to, like, I was just like freaking out on stage, making mistakes, singing the wrong lyrics, crying. It was just the greatest thing ever. I just really, really had the best time ever.
That is a great story because a lot of times some of these bands, they don't make up, or they make up and they're in different dressing rooms or whatever the case is. But
Yeah.
when did that reunification start? That night you got there, or were you guys texting back and
Um,
forth about it? Or
I saw him in 1997 at a U2 concert, and it was pleasant, and he was very sweet. And and then I saw him later on at well, then I heard that he had gotten sober, and I was actually struggling with addiction at the time, and I kind of remember getting sober. But it was really like, I think I sent him an email like 15 years ago, and I was like, "Yo, dude, it's Richard. What's going on? I haven't talked to you in forever. How are you?" And it was like right then and there, it just kind of came back, and we started goofing on, like, telling old stories and stuff like that. So, and then over the time, he's invited me to his house for stuff. And we went to a haunted house at Universal Studios, and they have this big huge haunted thing, and he invited me to that. And then yeah, and we've always, and I have his phone number, and we just text back and forth. We're always goofing on each other, like goofing around on texting and stuff like that. So yeah, we've kept up.
No, that's cool. I'm glad that you guys are at least back together in some way, shape, or form, because
Well, I mean, the thing to remember is we were so young,
yeah.
and we were so crazy, and we were drunk all the time, and like things, like all of that stuff disappears when you start having kids, and you get sober, and you realize life is short. Like, I want to keep my friends from when I was a kid, childhood. I have some dear friends that I stay in touch with over these past 50 years, And I think it's important to have those relationships because, I knew Trent before he was huge. I knew Trent before, like, I knew him when he was living in a tiny little apartment back in Cleveland, Ohio, and I remember that guy as well as the guy that's, just won a couple Oscars and tours the world as 9 Inch Nails and kicks ass. You know what I mean? And I think there's benefit in that.
Yeah, by the way, I went to a show at Blossom Music Center last year, and I just got out of traffic last week.
Yeah.
That place is the worst.
Yeah, you gotta plan ahead. You gotta, but the facility is
Oh, the
amazing.
facility's great. Yeah, no
Yeah,
doubt.
the
It took us
facility is, yeah.
2.5 hours to get in, and I thought we left with plenty of time and the whole thing, and yeah, it wasn't great. So
It's always been that way too. I mean, the same amount of people show up at it, you know what I mean? And it's got those two little roads,
yeah, and I'm like, did this place just open last week? They don't know what the traffic's going to do. It was just kind of
Yeah.
insane to me. But
Yeah, you have to definitely plan ahead when you're leaving.
so
And
this,
carpool.
yeah, right. So this is cool. So the record drops on August 25th, and the day before that is, if I'm not mistaken, you leave on the Freaks on Parade tour, correct?
No, we're leaving tonight. I'm leaving this tomorrow morning at like 9 a.m. We're gonna go do like 2 or 3 shows just to kind of warm up, like
Okay.
headlining shows, and then we're gonna meet up with those guys next week, I think.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think that
sometime.
starts on the 24th or something, if my memory serves. I don't have it written down here, but I thought it was the 24th.
Yeah, I would have to look. I'm pretty sure it starts next week. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's going to be a huge tour. Rob Zombie, Alice Cooper, and Ministry and Filter. It's going to be insane.
Yeah, that's great. So did you grow up a big Zombie and Cooper fan?
Of course. Well,
Yeah.
Zombie happened at the same time.
Well, that's true. Yeah, yeah,
You know
you're
what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
We kind of came up together because I toured with White Zombie back in 1995. But the band that really changed my life was Ministry. The Land Rape and Honey came out in 1987, and I was at a ripe old age of like 18 or something like that, and it blew my mind. It was like I had just been turned down by a record company for sounding too much like U2, and I called my friend up, Trent Reznor, and he's like, "Dude, you just got to start listening to other things. You got to start listening to other bands." And my friend Dave Soleil came over with the cassette of The Land of Rape and Honey, which is the Ministry record,
Mhm.
and it was unbelievable. It was so industrial, and I didn't even know what industrial was. And it blew my mind. And the next time I saw Trent, uh, he saw me, he's like, "What's gotten into you?" And I'm like, "I listen to Skinny Puppy and Ministry, and that's it. That's all. My world is dark. You wouldn't understand." And Trent's like, "You know what? I've got something for you. It's called 9 Inch Nails. It's my project." And that's how I got into 9 Inch Nails.
No kidding. Wow, that's a great story. Yeah, Ministry. Man, I'll tell you what. I stood side stage for Rock on the Range to watch them a couple years ago. It's pretty wild.
They're heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just did this thing that we did called the Hitcore, where it's a web stream. It's Hitcore, HITKOR.com. There's a concert that we did that anyone can see, as long as they have $20. Uh, but anyone can see, and so did Ministry do it, and they're amazing. And yeah, it was a great show to see them, and they're heavy as hell, and but they're the nicest guys in the world, and it's going to be a blast touring with them.
Yeah. Do you like going on those big like tours like that, or do you prefer to headline, or what do you like?
I mean, yes to all of the above.
Yeah.
I'm okay with opening the show and playing for 30 minutes because it's easy.
Mhm.
It's really fun and easy to do those shows. But at the same time, I love headlining shows because we get to do so much from our catalog. I mean, remember we have 8 records,
Yeah.
and so I like to hit each record. And yeah, it's I think it's also the ticket. You go around the world on these things, and you get to see foreign countries, and you get to go to, like, we're going to be going to Europe next March, and then Australia in April. and we haven't announced that yet, but the rumor is that we're going to be going in April for those of you who live in Australia and hear this somehow, which is totally possible.
Well, in this day and age, anything's
Yeah,
possible
yeah.
with this
But
crazy
we,
web.
but yeah, just going to Australia and seeing the rest of the world and stuff like that. That's always fun. And those are going to be headlining shows for sure.
You take your kids out on tour with you? They come with you?
No, no, they're big enough. They're in school.
Oh,
It was hard leaving them when I was, when I was on tour for like 8 months out of the year back in 2013, 2014, 2015. They were like, 6 and 7 years old and they didn't really understand where I was going.
mm,
Um, but now that they're older and they're a little bit more together and everything's rocking and they're A students, I tend to leave them at for school and hanging out with their mom and just making sure they rock in school and everything like that.
yeah, that's great.
But I come back. I mean, this tour is only 6 weeks long, and then I'm going to be back for 3 or 4 months working on a movie score. And then after that, and that's another reason why the algorithm took 7 years to make, is because I was doing movie scores all in between it. And that's my side hustle.
Mm.
That's what I do to to keep the wheels of industry going.
Yeah, no doubt. And plus we had a pandemic right in the middle of that too.
Yeah, and the pandemic, yeah, that'll slow you down.
Yeah,
So
sure.
the pandemic was kind of crazy because I was working on the movies and I was doing the records, so it didn't really affect me. I mean, I wore a mask, I remember that, but like, and I got vaccinated 3 or 4 times, but yeah, the pandemic didn't really hurt us, and my kids were completely like, oh, sure, school on our computer, great.
Right.
They took to it like Zoom meetings. They took to it quickly and studied and got great grades. So I'm proud
Well,
of my little ones.
yeah, stop rubbing it in because my son was on Zoom, maybe. I don't know what he was
Right.
half the time. But hey, last thing here for you. I can't believe when I tell people that your brother is Robert Patrick. Like people don't know that or something. Are you?
Yeah.
Are you in touch with your brother? You guys hang out? You guys?
We're as life is going on, we don't really talk too much that much. He's really different than I am,
Right.
and he's a booze fighter. He's in a motorcycle club that he loves, but he loves acting, and he's also a singer, and he's been working on music for the last 10 years. He did a song called "Oh Lord" on the last Rampage soundtrack that's out there on iMusic and everything. And but yeah, Robert the actor, he's my bro.
Yeah.
Rob the Slob, I call him.
I just saw somebody just ran into him on this Instagram account I follow. He was in Ireland, and I guess this guy walked out of a tavern, and your brother was there, and and it'd be kind of cool. I never met him before, but he seems like a pretty good dude. But
Yeah,
my brother lives 300 miles away. We're 7 years apart, and yeah, we don't communicate that much.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. I mean, brothers always fight.
yeah,
That's just, we come from a fighting kind of intense family, and we're you know we bicker back and forth, but ultimately I love him and I wish him well.
all right, there you go. Well, Richard, thanks so much for everything. We'll see you here on September 5th, Freaks on Parade tour, and the algorithm drops on August 25th. Good luck with everything.
Thank you so much, and I hope you guys are playing Obliteration, and I hope you join our ads this week, hopefully. You're like, no comment, you're gonna edit that.
That's not me. I I just say stupid crap on the radio, but yeah, I'll definitely put the word in with the boss. I
Yeah,
appreciate.
well, we love your station, and we can't wait to see you. And definitely, if you want, like, I'll hook you up with backstage passes, and you can come and hang out if you want to.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.